Garen and a Dragon Named Goose, Chapter 5. Rippling waves of lava spewed from the belly of the earth, rising up as if to snatch Garen from his perch at the crater's edge. Looking up from the mesmerizing dance of fire and flame, he could see it all. The island of Aria, the capital of Baytown and its docks, and the sprawling towns and villages to the east and west of Mount Aria. But his gaze was drawn closer, a horde of men and women clambering up the rocky slopes. In the distant sea, a great wave was coming, a curtain of water that had no end. Whether people running from it or coming for him, one thing was certain: their faces were contorted in angry snarls, not looks of fear. "Come, Garen!" a whispering voice called from the depths of the volcano's crater, making him turn to stare into the deep once more. It felt warm, inviting. An acrid smell came over him, familiar like eggs. Garen jumped up, falling out of his bed and crashing to the hard wooden floor. "Arden, oh, brother, you bird brain, you do entertain me so." Arden stood in the doorway to Garen's room, shoulders bobbing up and down as he chuckled. "But no rest for the weak. Mother has eggs ready, and if you want to pass the initiate test, you'll take your fill and then see to your practice," Garen groaned. "Why do you care, Arden?" "What are big brothers for?" Arden said with a smirk, and ducked out of the room. Eggs. It was always eggs on the Sky Farm. Garen stood up, rubbing his head. The dream had felt so real. In the kitchen, his mother was waiting, along with a plate of fresh bread and far too many boiled eggs. "I made them just how you like them, darling," she said as he entered, coming to give him a tight hug, her brown eyes brimming with love. "Thanks, Mum. Where's everyone?" "Your father is already out in the fields, and Zeph is on deliveries." Garen sat at the table. Checking outside the window, the sun was already halfway through the morning sky. "You're not working today?" His mother passed him a hot cup of milk tea and began untying her apron. "I thought I'd make sure you were okay first and that you got a good breakfast in you." Garen smiled. "What about Arden? Your father told him to keep an eye on you." The smile turned into a frown, and he scooped an egg into his mouth. "No wonder. He does care for you, Garen. It's just going to take some adjustment, you know," his mother said, her eyebrows raised. "Adjustment? He just wants to torture me." His mother stared blankly at him for a moment as he scooped up another egg and held the stare until he popped another one in with it, his cheeks swelling like a gerbil. She smiled in approval, but as she went to answer him, she tilted her head to the side, as if hearing something distant. Golden wisps flitted by her ear and then disappeared. "Yes, Kaylee, I'm coming." Kaylee was her spirit animal, and very much not a goose. In fact, Kaylee avoided the birds whenever possible. No, Kaylee was a proud crane, tall and slender with a sleek beauty only outmatched by her grace. Kaylee, calling in spirit form, meant deliveries were needed, ones likely out of range for Luna or Aura. Garen's mother was far more advanced in her spirit energy than even Arden, and despite Kaylee's appearance, the crane was very strong. Even Hank didn't dare to mess with her. "Now, see you later, my dear, and be sure to practice. I can hardly sense any spirit energy in you at all." Garen frowned. "Thanks for reminding me. Speaking of reminders," she said, standing and smoothing out her simple blue dress, "do you remember that you have a dragon? Or are those eggs simply so good that you forgot?" Garen stood up from the table with a start, looking around his feet, shoulders, and then back to his mother. He tried to talk and almost choked on the eggs. "Where?" she laughed, taking a bag down from a peg near the entrance hall. "We're as sleepy as he was last night. He's full of beans this morning. He's with Hank." Pulling her bag over her shoulder, she made towards the exit, a wide smile on her face. "He'll make a fine goose, that one." Waving his mother goodbye, Garen rushed the remaining eggs into his mouth and took the bread with him. It was a fine sunny day on the Sky Farm as Garen eventually burst out of the front door, a large chunk of bread still between his lips. "Now where are you, Goose?" "Honk!" From the side path came Hank's deep call. The bread dropped out of Garen's mouth. Atop Hank, peering out happily from behind the bird's thick neck, was Goose, his draping wings and tail giving Hank the appearance of some armored beast. Dad is not going to believe this. Garen spun around to see Arden leaning against the side of the house, shaking his head, trying his best not to smile. "Your Goose better not try that with Ori, or he might find himself missing a few scales. Arden, I don't think. Home!" The brothers froze, turning away from each other and slowly to where the unnatural sound had come from, like Hank had eaten gravel and rung a bell. Even Hank had frozen, one flappy foot raised in a paused step. Only Goose moved, tilting his happy face to the side. The dragon said again, his tail wagging madly behind him as he looked from face to face while bouncing on Hank's back. Hum, 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 hunk. Hank thundered at the small dragon, his neck craning back to get at him. Goose shriveled up between Hank's wings, his spiky ears pinned back against his head. Hank then lowered his foot, gave a curt nod to the brothers, and carried on walking. He stopped to peck the falling piece of bread from the floor, and then carried on the path between the pens and crops, his head scanning from side to side, Goose copying the movement. Go, let him go, brother, Arden said, stepping away from the wall. Being around Hank not only helps him settle in here on the farm, but will also help stabilize his spirit energy. Garen hated it when Arden lauded his knowledge over him, but he didn't doubt he was right. And you, brother? He continued. Well, there's no point trying to bond deeply with him when you have nothing to bond with. Why, even an insect would be too much for you now. Garen felt annoyed that he couldn't tell if his brother was joking. Was he really that weak? Okay, he said with a sigh. Let's go. Together, they walked over to the fire-branch tree, the largest on the farm. The leaves were always red, and its crimson bark always warm. Even the ground where the roots dug retained some heat. Under the ample shade it gave was a well-worn patch of turf. Each member of the family had spent their time there, focusing or following the forms. Arden went and sat against the tree, pulling out his school slate. What forms did Cleason tell you to do? He said, while casually flicking through things Garen couldn't see. Even if you were close, you couldn't read another's slate easily. It ran from the body's own spirit energy, attuned completely to it, and unless yours was very similar or you had an incredibly high skill, it was nigh impossible to see. If Garen passed the initiate test, he'd get his own. If, he said, I just need to stand like a tree, Arden scoffed. No forms, no steps, just standing, Garen nodded, feeling his cheeks burn slightly. It really was torture being around his brother. Well, if he says so, Arden said, putting his attention firmly back in his slate. Last time, Garen asked, Arden had managed to compress his energy density to such a level in the device that he could fit 100 books in it, and he'd mastered the flows to do so. Garen shook his head. He had to focus. He moved to the patch, oddly warmer than the rest of the green area. Spreading out his legs and straightening his back, he relaxed, following what Cleason had told him. Let your whole body relax, Garen, and feel your legs sinking into the earth as if a tree's roots sending them deep into the ground. Do not be firm. Be supple, removing any sense of effort of your being, any effort of standing, any effort of the mind. Just be and breathe, Garen, breathe. Garen focused a breath through his belly, like Cleason had said, feeling the weight of it settling there with each turn, as he slowly and silently breathed through his nose. It felt strangely hard, just standing, just being still, feeling the tension as it came and letting it go. After a time, it felt like his blood was rushing within him, faster and faster, for no reason at all, and sweat began to trickle down his back. His mind was trying to wander, thoughts of his dream and what it could mean, thoughts of Goose, thoughts leading to questions, with one dwarfing all the rest. Why him? Of all the people, why had he got a dragon? Garen and a dragon named Goose, Chapter 5, Part 2. And what in the world was he meant to do with it? Breathe. What would happen if he didn't pass the test? Breathe. What would his friends be thinking? Breathe. What would Maya think? Breathe. Why did Maya have such nice hair? How did she always smell amazing? Will she think I'm cooler with a dragon? Brother, even if I couldn't see and sense your aura, then your face would tell me all I need to know. It's as red as the sunset in the Bloodlands. What in the mother's name are you thinking of? Girls, Arden, girls! Came a gruff voice. Garen spun round to see his father leaning against a tree, a big grin on his face. Even Arden looked shocked not to have noticed him approaching. I was just doing what head teacher Cleason told me to, Garen blurted out, scratching the back of his head. Where was the chasm when you needed it? I'm not sure the head teacher taught you anything going through your head just then, son. His father's eyes were positively twinkling, and Arden had the exact same look on his face. Maya, no doubt, added Arden, thinking your dragon will win her over. Their father laughed. Leave him be, Arden. Garen, you've been at this for a while now. I came to tell you that Maya and Sam are at the main gate, if you'd like to call it a day. Their father donned his long-brimmed straw hat and went back to the fields. "A while? It's only been a few minutes," Garen said, looking at Arden. His brother stood, stretching his arms high. 2 hours, brother," he yawned. Garen looked up. The sun was now directly above them. "How had so much time passed? And according to my slate, you even registered a little bit of spirit energy, although try and pull your breath more at your center next time." Arden clasped his shoulder as he walked past. "Same again tomorrow, and maybe after that we can begin training with Goose, if you can get him to stay still for a second." Arden yawned again as he let go and walked off towards the house. Garen frowned. Arden being nice seemed scarier than the alternative. "Thanks, brother," Garen called. Arden waved a hand without turning back and disappeared into the house. Down at the main gate of the farm, Garen spotted the familiar faces of his friends, Sam and Maya. Sam noticed Garen first. "Garen, you're back. Finally." Sam was Garen's closest friend. He was a head shorter than Garen and almost too slim, but what he lacked in size he made up for in personality. There was no one with more confidence and craft, a trait no doubt picked up from his younger years and tooth. In fact, as Garen looked at him, he was reminded of Nero Blackfeather, the same spiky black hair and big nose, but Sam's eyes were blue. On his shoulder sat a spirit animal, Garen didn't quite know. Sam noticed his confused expression. "He's a tanuki, Garen, a raccoon dog, the perfect spirit animal." The small creature was black and white, like a badger with larger ears and a long bushy brown tail. "He's got thumbs," Garen thought out loud, noticing the creature's strange paws. "Yep, strange that. Knows how to use them too," Sam laughed. "You mean he steals things, Sam?" Maya interjected, rolling her eyes. "He's tried snatching my earrings twice already." "No!" Tanu would never do that. "Would you, Tanu?" Tanu covered his eyes with his hands, drawing a laugh from Sam. They were perfect for each other. Garen turned to Maya. She was his oldest friend, courtesy of their mothers being close more than anything else. The breeze was catching her golden hair to blow it across her face, which she tucked back behind her ear, pulling it away from her jade eyes. She smiled at him, and Garen felt his heart melt. Not that he was special. Most boys in their school had a crush on Maya. But then Garen blinked, suddenly noticing that she didn't have a spirit animal. For a dreadful moment, he wondered if she had become one of the spiritless, and it must have shown. "Watch this," she said, her smile turning into a sly grin. She closed her eyes and exhaled. Wisps of gold seemed to spill from her hair and wind blew around her pale red dress. Into a round form the wisps congregated on her shoulder, the form slowly changing to black and white fur, then to large paws and round black ears. "Garen, I'd like to introduce you to my panda, Bambo." Maya was positively beaming. "Or Dr. Bambo, as I like to call him." "A panda!" Garen exclaimed. "That's amazing, Maya! No one on Arya has ever had a panda. And you can already do spirit form. That's crazy! Well," she said, her cheeks slightly flushing pink, "it just happened. And although he's not quite as exotic as a dragon, I'm happy." She looked around and Garen noticed Sam standing on his toes, trying to peer over the crops. "So come on then," she continued. "Where is he?" Garen wiped the sweat from his brow. "Here were his friends, their animals under perfect control. Maya already having performed spirit form, one of the feats required for the test. And Garen, he hadn't even held Goose fully awake yet, and Hank seemed to be the one in control. Wrong, Hong." As if summoned, Goose came galloping down the path, moving faster than Garen had ever seen, all his scales pressed into his body along with his wings, making him look completely smooth. In quick pursuit was Ori, a single black scale between his beak. Arden was there too, laughing as he jogged behind. Garen bent down, sticking out his arms to get ready for Goose to. The dragon jumped straight onto the fence and into Maya's arms. She blinked, looking down at the panting dragon. Goose was watching out for Ori, the bird flapping around at the fence's edge. "He tried to ride him," Arden said, catching up with him and giving Garen a knowing look. "He's so warm," Maya gasped. Goose, seemingly calming at Ori being out of reach, looked up to her and his eyes went wide. A strange, purring sound came from him as his tail gently reached to stroke Maya's cheek. Bambo shuffled across, trying to push his face between Maya and the dragon's tail, as if trying to scratch a good itch. "Garen, what is he doing?" Maya said, standing very still, eyes on Goose. Arden was laughing again. You three will learn all about why spirit animals do things like this when school starts again." He looked at his brother with a smirk. "I wish I could be there for it." Garen could feel the heat rushing to cheeks again. He tried to reach out to take Goose, but the dragon only clung to Maya even closer. He was even batting his eyelids at her. Not knowing what else to do, he shooed away Ori with his feet and opened the gate. "Come on, guys, let's go sit by the fire tree, and I'll tell you everything that happened over the last few days." The three of them went to the tree, and Garen told them all they wanted to know, from when he had got Goose, a High Mages Council meeting, to then starting his training only today, and how woefully low his spirit energy was. It felt good to talk, and he even mentioned his dream, as silly as it was. His friends sat quietly, listening to everything he had to say. Tanu seemed to be devilishly grinning, his little hands clasped together as if he were hatching some kind of plan. When Garen finished talking, the little Tanuki leaned across to Sam's ear, as if to whisper something. "I've just had an amazing idea," Sam said, bolting up, Tanu almost falling from his shoulder. Garen and Maya gave each other a knowing look. Usually, Sam's ideas meant one thing: trouble. Sam put out his hands as if in protest. No, guys, trust me, this one's a good one. Garen is low on spirit energy, right? And we've only a couple of weeks until the test." He sat back down, leaning forward. "Well, desperate times call for desperate measures, my friends. I can't risk any trouble, Sam. Cleason said if I—" "Who said anything about trouble?" Sam butted in, a single finger raised. "Just leave it to me. Garen, trust me." Tanu again clasped his hands together and made little chuckling sounds. "We can get you all the spirit energy you'll need, and tonight."